Well, the AFL Grand Final will be played in Melbourne on Saturday between two interstate teams, the Sydney Swans and the Brisbane Lions. In the NRL, it's preliminary finals weekend, but the Storm and Panthers are favoured to meet in the big dance the following week. But one aspect in both codes continues to cause controversy and inconsistency, and that's the way the sports handle concussion and head injuries. We still read or see cases featuring young, brain-impacted sports people and discussions about how these sports go about reducing the risks to their players. As one editorial in the Sydney Morning Herald noted over the weekend, science now shows that repeated head impacts, not just cases of concussion, can damage players' brains, and it does not take decades of hits to the head to do great harm. So are the sports going far enough, or are they too hesitant to sideline their elite players for fear of lessening the spectacle for fans and viewers? Chris Fox is an executive with NeuroFlex, a company which is gradually supplying cutting-edge, eye-tracking virtual reality technology to measure the impact of brain injuries. He's working with sports globally to ensure that all concussion protocols have access to the best technology and to help keep sports people safer. Chris Fox, welcome to ADH TV.
Thanks, Chris.
Can I get to the point right off the bat? Could the big football codes in this country do more to keep their players safe?
Yes, a lot more.
How?
Well, the primary issue, I guess, is that we're focusing at elite players that have got cotton wool wrapped all around them, Chris. I mean, they've got the best medical support, they've got the best specialists, they've got cameras on them throughout the entire game, and if there's any hesitation, they're taken off the field. So when the cameras are rolling, when elite sports people are playing any sport in the world, if in doubt, take them out. That's not the problem. That's the narrative that people are focusing on, and that's wrong. The issue isn't about what happens on the field. It happens to be what happens once that player is in a position where they've suffered an MTBI or a mild traumatic brain injury. The issue is, when is it safe for that individual to go back on the deck?
And in the football codes, they're clearly getting them back on the paddock far too quickly. Would you agree?
That could be the case, and that really is the crux of the issue. At the minute, and it depends upon which sporting code you follow, but men that wear suits and women that wear suits are predicating when it is safe for that particular person to return to play. 12 days, 11 days, 21 days, it depends upon what that particular bureaucratic code suggests is the right time for that brain to go back into fray. And of course, that's illogical, Chris. If you suffer a dislocated shoulder, or if you suffer an ACL injury, there's no predetermined return to play. It's when the body and the surgeon tells you that that individual's right to go.
Yeah.
And so this is the conundrum. You're going to have criticism like this until the sport puts in place, and whether it be rugby or Australian rules, what the overwhelming international medical community is saying, and it's simply this: baseline your kids, baseline your athletes, baseline your grassroots rugby players or footballers to get a normative range of that bespoke brain. Then if there is a traumatic brain injury, you retest that brain and do not allow that individual to go back until that person is at normative range. Not one brain is the same. And that is the message that needs to be told.
That is the message, but it's also the perfect time to bring in NeuroFlex into the picture and into discussion, because that's exactly what this technology does. Explain to us firstly where it's used and how it's used.
Well, you would have seen, obviously, that tragic story in the Australian and FIFA and the World Health Organisation, their response. We provide concussion protocol for FIFA, and we used at the men's and women's World Cup. We work with most global sport, and we form part of, an integral part of, what's called a multimodal response to the issue of concussion. So NeuroFlex is an important part of a global protocol that enables doctors to make informed decisions. But Chris, that's, I guess, the easy part. The hard part is when you're at grassroots level, trying to encourage people that administer sport to try and put in place the best possible protocols in the absence of highly trained medical professionals. And what is really causing, particularly in Australia, issues is that grassroots sport, whether it be rugby, whether it be rugby league, rugby union, Australian rules football or soccer, they're looking to the leagues, they're looking to the AFL, they're looking to the NRL for leadership, and there is absolutely very little being offered.
And yet there are some junior clubs in the AFL, junior clubs in the NRL, very, very much down the chain, who have embraced NeuroFlex and increasing their protocols to test their athletes, their children, and then test them regularly to work out whether they are suffering any brain injury after play. You know, it's almost as if the tail is in charge here. The tail is doing all the work, yet it should be happening at the elite level and then moving down the ladder.
Yeah, well, Chris, at the elite level, I mean, you mentioned the tail. We're getting the tail end of athletes that are having to retire from the game because their early concussive events were probably not tracked properly. So over a period of time, as we track these head knocks, players hopefully won't suffer what is the curse called CTE, and that was what was in the Australian, and that's what too many players have suffered from. So, I mean, I guess the frustration is, why haven't the AFL and the NRL acted? God knows. We don't know. We suspect there could be some legal issues, particularly when it comes to claims against these organisations. We noticed that Chris, tragically, within both major sporting codes in Australia, the response has been to invest a lot of money in 20-year longitudinal studies into concussion. That's not going to help Sally or Jimmy tomorrow when they take the field. No. Chris, this is the important message to listeners. The solution for brain health of our kids, whether they are amateur athletes, whether they are professional athletes, is here, right now. Clinicians are armed with a world-class multimodal platform that is not just NeuroFlex, but there are other items that ensures that every person has a baseline test, and that costs about $40. A simple 8-minute baseline test will protect that individual, hopefully for their entire career. And God knows why this isn't being promoted in Australia as avidly as it's being promoted in Britain, Europe, New Zealand, all parts of the world. and frustratingly, we're seeing not a lot of activity in Australia.
Yeah, not a lot of activity, and we're not taking the lead from those overseas codes that are clearly realising that this is a major issue. Chris Fox, thank you very much for a little bit of an insight into something that we'll no doubt return to, because it's a major issue for football codes right across the country. Thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure, Chris.
Okay, from NeuroFlex, Chris Fox.